Good morning. Today I'm going to tell you about a change, a big change that's happening. It's subtle, but it has profound implications for all of Hollywood, all of the entertainment business. And in particular, I'm going to tell you about the rise of the surveillance state. And then at the end of my talk, I'll talk about how that's going to transform the role of the documentary filmmaker. The role of the documentary filmmaker is going to evolve from an observer, a neutral observer, to an activist. My story, like all good Hollywood screenplays, has 3 acts. The first act starts in 2000. About 14 years ago, I had a job as the head of digital media at Sony Pictures, and I left that job to join an obscure startup company that nobody had ever heard of. It was a company called Packet Video, and they were the first company in the world to put video on mobile phones, the ability to record it and the ability to share it and the ability to watch it. And everybody I knew thought I'd lost my mind. My friends in television said, well, who's ever going to watch a TV show on a mobile phone? It seemed preposterous to them. And the people in the mobile networks, the people at Verizon and Sprint, for instance, they challenged us to say, well, what's the use case? Why do people actually need this technology? And I'm happy to tell you that here today, that question has been completely answered. There are more than 1,000 ways to create and share video. And it seems like everybody with a mobile phone is doing this. About 70% of the people who own smartphones use those phones to record and share video and photographs. And we use it for all sorts of purposes, to record family moments. We share those, we stream them out. When we go to live events, we'll sometimes record a live concert or maybe a live sports event, stream that out. That's very common. This is the Hollywood Bowl just a couple weeks ago. Even when you go to a trade show now, it's quite normal to see people recording video for their colleagues who can't be there, and they're going to share that with people who can't attend. And we're actually starting to see some unusual cases, some use cases we never could have predicted 10 years ago. For instance, this is a drone. Nowadays, people are attaching your cell phones, and sometimes they're attaching cameras to drones. You heard about the selfie. That was the word of the year last year. This is the droney. The droney starts like this. You take a picture of yourself. It's sort of a self-portrait, and then you zoom back to reveal some cool location that you're in. My buddy Rio Karieff shared these photos with me. He's become quite an expert in drone photography. It's kind of a weird new world that we're moving into. And what's important about what's happening is that all these different ways that people are shooting video, we're generating an enormous amount of video, tremendous amounts of video. Last year, YouTube shared this news with us that they're now having more than 100 hours of videos uploaded every minute to YouTube. That's a staggering number. That's 4 days worth of video uploaded every minute of the day to YouTube, and surely that's increased by this point. Now, folks in Hollywood sometimes don't understand the implications of that. What that means is that the product that we make here, that we think is so priceless and so valuable and scarce, is actually a tiny drop in an ever-expanding ocean of content that's being generated by people all over the world. Now, somebody said to me yesterday, well, where will it stop? Where will it end? I have news for you. It's not going to end. It's going to continue to grow. Today, there are almost 2 billion people using smartphones around the world, and we're going to continue to add another billion every year until the year 2020. There'll be about 6 billion people on Earth with smartphones, and they'll all be sharing video and photographs with each other. I know this because this phone behind me isn't an iPhone. It's not an Android phone. This is a Firefox phone. It was developed by Telefonica together with the Mozilla Foundation. It's an open source phone. It's very cheap. It costs about 60 euros. So it's not a $600 iPhone, it's 60 euros. That puts it within reach of the next billion and the next billion and the next billion, and that cost will surely go down over time until we get to the end of the decade when we're literally going to have billions and billions of people sharing content. We're sharing everything. We're not just sharing video. We're sharing everything, and the number seems to double and double and double. I was curious about how many people have taken photographs. How many photographs do we actually take? Because people seem to take an awful lot of photos these days. So if you do a search for that on the web, you'll find this blog by Jonathan Good from 1,000 Memories, where he said, in the first 100 years of photography, from 1826 till the 20th century, actually, that number didn't change very much. And it really wasn't until the end of the 20th century that we started to see lots of photos being taken, 85 billion in 2000. But what happened next is amazing. After 2000, you see the chart goes like that. Yeah, that's right. 350 billion photos were taken in 2011. This coincides with the rise of digital photography, of course, but you see that ramp at the end? That's the smartphone entering the equation. Chemical photography, printed photography, that's going way down. That's dropped way, way off. So I saw that information from Jonathan Good. I said, that's kind of cool. Has it changed in the last 3 years? And I did a little bit of research and found out that we're now posting and sharing almost 2 billion photos a day. That means this year we're on track to generate 660 billion photos. And that process won't stop. Think now a little bit further out to 2020 when you've got 6 billion people sharing photographs with smartphones. That number will probably double and double again, so at the end of the decade, I expect us to be sharing about 2 trillion photos a year. That's what disruption looks like, Hollywood. That's what it looks like when people power comes along and we start to generate content at tremendous scale. We are the most documented generation in history. We're all taking pictures and sharing status updates and posting and commenting and so forth. This creates an existential crisis for documentary filmmakers, in my opinion. What's the point of spending all your time on a thin slice of documentary filmmaking when everybody's sharing everything? We're documenting everything. So we have that challenge to face. And of course, we're generating one heck of a lot of content. In 2010, we crossed a major threshold. We generated 1.2 zettabytes of data. A zettabyte's a weird word, a zettabyte. What's a zettabyte? Well, here I have a 1 gigabyte flash drive. This used to be more memory than any computer had. Today, we give these things out for free at trade shows. So this is a gigabyte. Now imagine a pile of these that's really big, bigger than this building. A pile of 1 million of these drives. And now imagine a million piles of a million of these. That's a zettabyte of data. A million piles of a million flash drives. 1 million gigabytes of data. That's a zettabyte. We generated that much in 2010, and then quite amazingly, they predict that by 2020, we'll generate 35 times as much data. So now I'm just about to go from the first act of my story into the second act, because big data is big business. There are lots and lots of people who are paying attention to what you're sharing. It's not just your friends on Facebook. It's actually lots of people you've never heard about. You see, on the internet, the business model requires us to track what everyone's doing. People who are in the futurist industry, they like to use the term data is the new oil. That sounds cool. It's like a Klondike or kind of a new gold rush where people are rushing off to figure out how to mine this resource. But when I think about that, I think there's kind of a sinister undertone behind that. Because you have to ask yourself, what's the resource that's being mined in this new gold rush? And the answer is me and you and you and you. They're mining your identity. That's the natural resource that's being strip mined here. But your identity isn't good enough on its own. It has to be enhanced. It has to be enhanced with metadata. And so around that, they're tracking your behavior. They're tracking where you come from, how long you stay, what you look at, where you go next. On just about every major website today, as you hit that page, 65 different companies are inserting tracking software in your browser. It's astonishing. Even the publishers don't know what third-party cookies are being installed when people visit their websites. Even the ad networks don't know necessarily. And it's not just cookies. It's also beacons, and they're doing IP tracking so they can find your location. And they're even doing browser sniffing so they can track your whole history of web browsing. Facebook just announced that they're going to improve your profile when they sell it to marketers by adding your browsing history. They didn't really ask us for permission. They just took that. What's really scary to me is that this business model is now extending out to the real world. The Internet of Things is a really cool idea, but when you install a Nest thermometer in your house, you have to understand that Google owns that company, and now they're going to know when you wake up and when you leave and go to work. That's the Internet of Things. Smart devices in our houses are going to track us. When we go shopping in stores, you're going to start to hear this year about micro-location and iBeacons. These are technologies that enable retailers to track with millimeter precision where people go in a store. Your cell phone leaks out information as you move around. Your cell phone's a spy in your pocket. It has a MAC address, and it's also often we leave our Wi-Fi open. Those two numbers can be tracked, and that's an absolute thumbprint. It can be correlated with cash register data, so they can really start to get a sense of your identity. They're tracking you in retail the same way that you're being tracked on the internet. It's also moved to local law enforcement. Homeland Security has equipped most of the law enforcement departments across the country with technology to track us. So for instance, here in Southern California, if you drive down the 805 freeway in San Diego, your license plate's going to be photographed several times. Police forces are using drones, they're using facial recognition, they're using all kinds of technology to track our cell phones. So they're starting to build a real-world profile and meshing that with metadata about your behavior and your location. They call it reality mining. You're going to hear about this thing called the physical graph. The physical graph is a combination of your location data and the proximal network, all the devices around you that your phone connects to on a day-to-day basis. So you've heard about the social graph, that's your friends on Facebook. The interest graph, that might be the topics you're following on Twitter. Now they're going to enhance your profile with your physical graph, the places you go and your behaviors throughout the day. Here's an example I thought was kind of interesting. This is a company called Emotion, and they were demonstrating this technology. It uses facial recognition in stores, and you can see they're reading my emotional state, and they're saying that I'm joyful. You'll notice also that they track other emotions, like anger, fear, disgust, and contempt, and I suspect that they're going to see a real spike in those emotions when people start to discover that their behavior is being tracked this way in stores. Now, they claim they don't retain the data. Of course not. What we've constructed for ourselves is an opt-in panopticon. You see, we choose this for ourselves. We created this for ourselves. We'd rather have the free browser and the free email than privacy. We don't want to pay for those things. We enjoy the benefits of those free services. And after 12 years of terror alerts, we've been conditioned to believe that it's better for us to trade in the illusion of privacy for the illusion of security. The problem with the panopticon isn't that you're being watched. It's that we start to conform to what we think the person watching us wants. And in fact, that's true. The NSA revelations that came out last year from Edward Snowden, the biggest change that's occurred since that time is that most people now report in surveys that they've modified their behavior on the internet. And so we know Big Brother may be watching us, and so we're starting to change our behavior somewhat. Now, if my story ended here, it would be a bad story. That wouldn't be very much fun, but hey, it's TED, and this is an optimistic talk. I actually think there's a third act, and we're moving into that third act. I think what we're doing is actually quite cool. We're constructing a global network that extends human senses all the way around the world. As we start to wire up everybody on the planet with a smartphone, we're going to be able to see through their eyes and hear what they hear and see the world from their own perspective. And that's a tremendous change. Think about all that content that's being generated. You really start to get a firsthand perspective from other people around the world. That can be a really powerful thing. I think we're on our way to global empathy. That's incredibly powerful. That's a great opportunity that lies ahead for us. But remember, it's just this mass of data right now. It's not really organized well, and that's a role, I think, for documentary filmmakers to move into. Kathy Eldon, who created the Creative Visions Foundation, coined the term creative activists. This is different from a political activist or a social activist. A creative activist is somebody who uses art and media to scale up their message to a global level so that they can reach a lot of people and move them. And we're starting to see some amazing examples of documentary filmmakers who are working with the social media tools, crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, and so forth, collaborative tools, so that they can start to tell a much bigger story on a much bigger canvas. For instance, the activated audience. So the activated audience means that you have to actually give people tools. So the documentary filmmaker isn't just recording what they do, but they're actually constructing something for them to participate in, a way for those people to actually cooperate and share their stories in a meaningful context. One Day on Earth is perhaps the largest crowdsourced film project ever in history. It was produced in conjunction with the UN, and they got contributions from every country in the world. And so this takes all that social media sharing and focuses it. The filmmaker focuses that energy, that crowdsourced energy, into telling a narrative about what we're actually doing all day long. We're starting to see other things happen, too, where we can force some political change. One way to do it is to leverage global awareness to cause a local change. The film Talib was made by Danielle Khan, and she had a very interesting conversation with me where she talked about this movie. It focuses on the poorest and most neglected people in the country of Senegal. These are young boys who are sent off to Quranic schools where they're run by tyrannical headmasters who treat them like slaves and make them beg in the street. It's a terrible story. By making the film, she exposed it. Sure, documentarians always try to do it. They want to make you aware of a circumstance. But that's not where she stopped. She then showed the film in 133 countries around the world and organized a global coalition of educational establishments, educational institutions, cultural institutions, and NGOs like UNICEF and the Anti-Slavery International. These groups backed up the local group that was advocating for change. Now, Danielle's very clear about this. She said, if you want to affect change, you got to have a choir. That's people in the local community that are ready to take action and do something about it. But because they came with force behind them, the force of the international awareness and the support of all those organizations, they've actually been able to close schools, return those students to their homes, and put them in better schools, and actually lives have been saved. That's how a filmmaker can make great change. The film Give Up Tomorrow tells us how we can actually affect change at the national level with a documentary film. This film tells the story of a fellow named Paco in the Philippines, and he was unfairly jailed, but that's putting it mildly. It's a story of a grave miscarriage of justice, where he was jailed for a crime he couldn't possibly have committed. And the documentary shows clearly the corrupt judicial process in the Philippines that extends all the way to the Supreme Court. The global outcry from the campaign that the filmmakers organized started to boil up to the national level in Europe. They worked with EU ministers, and they actually managed to convince the government of Spain to intercede on his behalf. And now Paco is over in Spain. He's still not free, but he's at least in Spain, and the Spanish government has appealed for his release. There are many other examples of filmmakers around the world who are activating for this kind of change. Many examples. I was just in the Sheffield Documentary Film Festival, and I spoke to hundreds of filmmakers who are using these tools, crowdsourcing, to engage the crowd, to engage them in their message and take positive, meaningful action. And we're united in the belief that art really can change the world. And that is how filmmakers are going to move from passive, neutral observers to active participants in an outcome for good. Thank you.